listen up. I want to say something. People, Earth, I need to say something. Listen to me. I hope every one of you behind the screens or in this arena can feel this level of happiness just one time in your life.
There was a kid who would ride past my house every Saturday, throwing insults like daggers. He didn't know me, didn't need to, just saw a target, a face he didn't like. "Go back to your country, black knees," he'd shout, his voice laced with cruelty far too heavy for a child. I remember standing there, stunned, not because of the words, but because I genuinely didn't understand what I had done. Was it something I said? Something I was? The next week he pulled up again. This time he got closer. "What up, black boy?" he said, and I was already having a bad day. That was the day I snapped. He pushed me. Maybe he thought I'd cower, but instead I unleashed. I wailed on him, not like a fighter, not with skill, but with raw fury and tears. I wasn't trying to win a fight. I was trying to make it stop. I cried the entire time I hit him. My fists weren't landing to hurt, but to scream. He never came near me again. That moment didn't make me tough. It didn't make me proud. But it lit a fuse. That was the first time I realized I'd need to fight. Not because I wanted to, but because the world was already throwing punches. Years later, they would call me the face of a sport built on violence and honor. They'd chant my name in arenas filled with strangers. But back then, I was just a Nigerian kid in a foreign land, figuring out how to survive in a world that told me I didn't belong. After my UFC debut, I stole the show. Cameras turned to me. Questions followed. And the truth? I didn't like being famous. Fame pulls you in every direction, but never asks where you want to go. I crave something deeper than spotlight. I crave permanence. Not fame, immortality. I said I want to be remembered. I said it out loud, maybe selfishly. But when I die, I want my name carved into time. Not for vanity, for legacy. Because when the lights go out, all that's left is what you gave the world. And I'm giving it everything. I am Israel Adesanya, the best middleweight on planet Earth, the cleverest striker to ever read a man's movements like a book and turn his instincts against him. I don't just fight, I set traps. And when they step into my web, it's already too late. Before the lights, before the octagon, there was Lagos. I was born on July 22nd, 1989, the first of 5 children. My father, Oluwafemi, was an accountant, the kind of man who could stretch a dollar into a dream. My mother, Taiwo, a nurse with healing hands and a warrior's will. Together, they taught me structure, integrity, and how to move with purpose. My dad was sharp with money, taught me how to flip coins into wealth, not waste. My mom believed in discipline, maybe too much at times, but their love, it shaped me. I started Taekwondo like most kids join after-school clubs. Boredom mixed with curiosity. It was fun, until it wasn't. I started kicking everything, furniture, walls, maybe even a sibling or two. One day I broke my arm doing a flip off the couch. My mom pulled me out. "Too dangerous," she said, "no more." She didn't know she was pausing something that would later become my entire world. Back then, fighting wasn't a career. It was just movement, a way to burn energy. But life has a way of bringing you back to what you were born for. African parents don't raise fighters. They raised doctors, engineers, lawyers, people with stable futures. But somehow, despite their reservations, my parents became my biggest fans. Maybe they saw something in me that I didn't yet see in myself. Nigerians, we're different. There's a fire in us, a hunger. We're clever. We're driven. We're warriors. I say this not as a boast, but as a truth forged by generations. Our blood remembers battle, and once African fighters stepped into the UFC, the game changed forever. We moved to Ghana when I was 10. 10 months in a new country, new rules, new faces. Constantly being the new kid became my normal. Then in 1999, we moved to Rotorua, New Zealand. Cold air, unfamiliar stairs, and a world where my skin became a problem. I wasn't used to that. Back in Nigeria, kids could be cruel, but never because of race. In New Zealand, absolutely. But suddenly, my jokes and jabs weren't seen as playful. They were threats. And when words didn't work, I learned to use my fists. Fighting wasn't about glory, it was about survival, and it came from necessity. I didn't wake up one day and decide to become a martial artist. Life pushed me toward it. I didn't fit into the usual sports. Too tall, too awkward. Basketball? Nah. Soccer? Pass? Rugby? Please. But anime? That spoke to me. I saw myself in those characters. Misfits. Outcasts. But powerful. Naruto. Death Note. Especially Rock Lee. The guy who trained harder than anyone because he had no talent. Just heart. That was me. Fighting became my own anime arc. I wasn't born with it. I bled for it. You can trace every move I make in the octagon to a frame from a Japanese anime. It's not just inspiration, it's blueprint. My walkouts, my stances, the way I taunt, it's all lifted from the pages of manga and the scenes of animated battles. People think it's showmanship. It's soul. I even tattooed Toph Bay Fong from Avatar on my arm. The Last Stylebender isn't a nickname, it's who I am. I blend styles, bend expectations. I bring fiction into reality and make it lethal. After fighting, I'm starting my own animation studio because the world I escaped into as a boy, I'm going to create it for others. After high school, I found myself stuck in a loop. Small town, smaller dreams. Rotorua to Wanganui was a change in scenery, not spirit. I enrolled in design school, chasing a degree in computer design because I thought animation was my way out. But the truth? I wasn't ready. I had ideas, but no discipline. I wanted to create, but my soul wasn't in it yet. Animation felt like a door, but I didn't know which room I wanted to enter. The call to fight hadn't gotten loud enough yet, but it was whispering. And when I finally heard it, I couldn't ignore it anymore. See, at 18, everything changed. I watched Ong Bak, Tony Jaa flying through the air, elbows cracking skulls, knees slicing through space like weapons. That was the moment. That was the spark. I didn't know what Muay Thai was, but I knew I needed it in my life. I found a gym, started training. 6 weeks later, I had my first fight. No plan, no strategy, just raw movement. But it felt right. It felt like breathing. That feeling, that rush. I knew. I just knew. This was what I was meant to do. Not code, not animate, fight. The early days weren't glamorous. I wasn't a prodigy. I didn't walk into the gym and dominate. I got humbled, often. Eugene Behrman, my future coach, cornered me once and saw me get my ass handed to me. I wasn't sharp. I wasn't refined. And when I walked back into his gym later, he looked at me like I was a ghost. "You want to train?" he asked. I said, "Yeah." He didn't say no. He just watched. And maybe in that moment, he saw the difference. I wasn't the same kid who lost that night. I was someone hungry, someone who'd never stop. By May 2010, the tide started to shift. I won my first professional fight. Unanimous decision, no fluke, no luck, just evolution. And that was the beginning of a streak. 7 straight wins, each one sharpening me, molding me. I was fighting in China now. New language, new culture. But it didn't matter. The language of violence is universal. My fists spoke it fluently. Each fight was another lesson, another chapter. I wasn't just learning how to strike, I was learning how to win. And more importantly, how to lose with grace when the time came. I entered the Kunlun fight tournament in 2014, standing among warriors who'd bled for this moment. Semi-finals. Simon Marcus. We went to an extra round. Split decision. I lost, and I hated it. But I didn't crumble. That fight taught me something no victory could: respect. Respect for the craft, for the grind, for the fact that sometimes even your best isn't enough. That loss wasn't failure, it was sharpening. After that, I stepped into Glory 15 in Istanbul, faced Felipe Verlinden, lost again, and you'd think that would shake a man, but not me. I wanted a rematch, I wanted the story rewritten. 3 months later, at Glory of Heroes 3, I got my chance. Same opponent. New version of me. This time I won. Unanimous decision. It wasn't just about avenging a loss. It was about proving to myself that I could evolve. I wasn't here to stay stuck in a loop. I was here to rewrite scripts. And I did. Every fight, every rematch, every moment where doubt whispered, "Maybe this isn't for you," I answered with fists and fire. I wasn't just chasing greatness, I was becoming it, one round at a time. Back in New Zealand, I entered the King in the Ring tournament. Knockout format, 8 fighters, 1 night. Winner takes all. I didn't flinch. I was built for pressure, trained for chaos. That night, I carved my name into New Zealand's fight history. People started to notice. This tall, unorthodox, anime-loving striker who fought like poetry in motion. I wasn't supposed to be here. I wasn't built like the others, but I kept winning, kept proving them wrong. That's the thing about destiny. It doesn't wait for permission. But behind the wins was still a man struggling to balance 2 worlds, the fighter and the dreamer. I still wanted to create, still loved animation, still watched Naruto before fights, and quoted Rock Lee to anyone who listened. People laughed, called it childish, said it was weird, but I didn't care. Because that kid inside me, the one who escaped into fictional worlds to survive reality, he was still fighting too. He was the reason I walked out to the octagon like it was a stage. Why I bowed before battle. Why I believed that fighting could be art. My journey wasn't smooth. It wasn't cinematic in the way movies show you. There were nights I questioned everything. Times I wondered if I'd made the right choice leaving design school. Times I watched my peers settle into careers, buy homes, build families, while I nursed black eyes and busted ribs. But I had something they didn't. Fire, vision, purpose. And I wasn't chasing comfort. I was chasing legacy. I was chasing the feeling I got the first time I landed a clean shot and saw a man fold. Not out of malice, but mastery. I didn't want to just be good. I wanted to be unforgettable. I wanted my style to be studied, my fights to be watched like classics. I wanted the next generation to point and say, "That's how you do it." And I knew it wasn't going to be easy. Nothing worth having ever is. But I'd been underestimated my whole life. Too weird, too black, too loud, too different. And every time they said I couldn't, I did. I became the Last Stylebender. Not just a fighter, a movement, a myth in the making. In 2012, the fight gods began whispering louder. I was no longer just chasing wins in local circuits. I was evolving into a phenomenon. And with every punch, I grew hungrier. But it wasn't until 2018 that the world finally opened its eyes. My UFC debut, Perth, Australia. Rob Wilkinson stood across from me, but he wasn't just an opponent. He was the threshold, the moment between who I'd been and who I was about to become. I walked out to that octagon not just with my team, not just with skills, but with every version of myself. The bullied kid, the anime nerd, the young man who refused to quit. The moment the bell rang, I danced. Not because I was showing off, because I was free. My style was too fluid, too unpredictable. Wilkinson tried to hold me down, but you can't wrestle a ghost. I slipped, spun, cracked him with elbows, knees, precision. Then I finished him. Second round TKO. Just like that, the world took notice. But it wasn't just the win, it was the aftermath. I grabbed the mic and said what I had felt my entire life. I'm the new dog in the yard. And everyone better believe I pissed all over that cage to mark my territory. The media called me cocky, said I was arrogant, that I was all flash, no substance. But that's the thing, they hadn't been watching. They didn't know about the dozens of fights I'd already had across the world, the silent grind, the years of sharpening. I didn't come to make friends, I came to dominate. I came to build a legacy. And you can't do that whispering. You have to be loud. You have to make people uncomfortable. I wasn't here to play a character. I was the character. Realer than most, scarred but standing. And I wasn't backing down. The UFC kept feeding me tougher opponents. Marvin Vettori, Brad Tavares, Derek Brunson. Each one was supposed to test me, break me, but each one got picked apart. Vettori went to decision, but he couldn't touch me. Tavares, I turned his face into a canvas and painted it with jabs. Brunson, he charged in with chaos. I answered with precision. First round finish. And suddenly, I wasn't just a prospect. I was a problem. A stylish, trash-talking, sharp-shooting middleweight they couldn't figure out. Fans were divided. They either loved me or hated me, but no one could ignore me. Then came the test, the real one. Anderson Silva, the legend, the Spider, my idol. The reason I even believed you could fight like an artist. When they offered me that fight, I didn't hesitate. Some people shy away from meeting their heroes. Me, I wanted to stand across from mine, look him in the eye, and show him what he helped inspire. UFC 234, we put on a show, no takedowns, no hugging, just striking, chess at high speed. Silva was 43 but still dangerous, still beautiful in motion. I respected him, but I didn't let that respect stop me from winning. When my hand was raised, I felt it. Not just validation, but responsibility. Anderson had passed the torch without saying a word. I didn't just win the fight, I inherited the weight of legacy, and I carried it like a crown. Because now everyone expected me to ascend for the interim middleweight belt. That fight, art and pain. Gastelum battered and breathing blood. I said something to myself that only real fighters understand. You can't beat me. I was willing to go where he wasn't. That final round, I found something in myself. Another gear, another level. I beat him, won the belt, and broke into tears. Not because I was weak, but because I had given everything and survived. That fight became legend. People watched it and said it felt like a movie. But it wasn't fiction. It was grit. It was war. It was the moment the Last Stylebender was crowned. Not by the belt, but by the blood. Then came Robert Whittaker, the undisputed champ, fighting on home turf in front of 60,000 fans in Melbourne. The biggest crowd in UFC history at the time, all of them screaming for his name. I stood across from him, calm, because I knew. I'd seen his tape, seen the holes, knew how to move, knew where to strike. Round 2, boom, left hook, lights out. I unified the belt, became the king of the middleweights. But I didn't scream, I didn't dance. I knelt, looked up, let the moment wash over me. Because this was destiny fulfilled. After that, everything changed. Endorsements, talk shows, cameras, everyone wanted a piece of the champ. But with fame comes a distraction. And I never liked fame. It pulls at you, tries to shape you. People want you to be something palatable. But I was never built for that. I'm raw, I'm weird, I'm me. And I wasn't going to change to make people comfortable. I kept fighting, kept defending my belt. Paulo Costa, undefeated monster. I made him awkward style, awkward fight, but I won. Jared Cannonier, strong and fast, but not fast enough. I stayed on top, not by accident, by design, but no rise is without doubt. Critics kept chirping. Izzy can't wrestle. Izzy plays it safe, smiled through it. Because what they didn't understand was I wasn't just fighting opponents, I was fighting narratives, breaking molds. I wasn't brawling for blood, I was playing chess with fists. I was turning violence into art. I was building a mythos, one precision strike at a time. And deep down, I knew this was only the beginning. The next chapter was coming, and it would test everything. No hero's arc is complete without a fall. And for me, that came in the form of Jan Blachowicz, a challenge I sought, a risk I welcomed. Light heavyweight division, bigger men, heavier hands. But I was undefeated, confident, almost untouchable. People warned me, said I was biting off more than I could chew. But I needed to know, could my skill transcend size? Could I defy the limits of physics with technique alone? UFC 259. I walked in like a storm, but John didn't flinch. He weathered me, took me down, controlled me, and for the first time in the UFC, I lost. It wasn't just a loss on the scorecards, it was a silence in the soul. I had believed so deeply in my own legend that defeat felt like betrayal. I watched the fight back, frame by frame. No excuses, no running. I owned it. Jan was better that night, smarter, stronger, and it hurt. Not because of the fans, not because of the media, but because I knew I hadn't shown my best self. I gambled and I lost. But that's the thing about warriors. We don't bury our failures. We wear them. We learn from them. We sharpen our swords and return to battle. Coming back to middleweight wasn't retreat. It was reconnection to who I was, to where I reigned. Marvin Vettori was next. A rematch, years in the making. He still believed he won our first fight. He came in aggressive, fueled by delusion. But I didn't fight with anger. I fought with clarity. 5 rounds. Clinical dismantling. He swung at shadows while I painted pictures on his face. When it was over, he still didn't believe he lost. And that's when I knew I had grown. I didn't need his recognition. I had mastered the art of self-awareness, and with it, I ruled again. The belt was still mine, but the hunger had changed. It wasn't about silencing critics anymore. It was about pushing limits. Jared Cannonier was next. Strong, fierce, dangerous. But like many before him, he walked into my world. And in my world, precision beats power. Timing beats speed. I fought smart. I fought clean. And I left no doubt. Another title defense. Another notch on the legacy. But the storm was coming. A familiar face. A ghost from the past. One I couldn't ignore. Alex Pereira. Pereira wasn't just another contender. He was the man who had knocked me out in kickboxing. The only man to do so. Twice. Once by decision. Once by brutal left hook. The UFC had signed him. Fast-tracked him. People said it was for drama, for ratings, maybe. But I didn't care. I wanted that fight. I needed it. Because no matter how high I rose, his shadow followed. And to truly be free, to truly be immortal, I had to face the man who once left me unconscious on the canvas. The storyline was perfect, and so was the pressure. We met at UFC 281, Madison Square Garden, the Mecca. The stakes couldn't be higher. I was winning, round after round, landing shots, dictating pace. I even hurt him badly in the first. But fighting isn't just about rounds, it's about moments. And in the 5th, when the clock was ticking down and my hands were slightly low, Pereira found his moment. Left hook. My legs wobbled. The referee stepped in. Just like that, it was over. New champion. My reign broken. My streak snapped. And my ghost reborn. The silence afterward, deafening, but necessary. I didn't hide, didn't disappear. I faced the cameras, faced the questions. I even faced myself. The loss didn't shame me, it sharpened me. Because sometimes you need to be reminded that greatness isn't invincibility, it's resilience. I took time to reflect, to train, to evolve. And then, when the world had nearly written me off, I came back. UFC 287, the rematch. Pereira versus Adesanya 2. But this wasn't about revenge, it was about reclaiming my legacy, my confidence, my crown. And I didn't just come to win, I came to exorcise a demon. That night in Miami, I walked out with fire in my heart and calm in my soul. I studied Pereira, knew his rhythms, his tells. I let him pressure me, let him believe he had me cornered. And then, boom, right hand, followed by another. He crashed. I stood over him, primal and triumphant. The roar I let out wasn't for the crowd. It was for every version of me that had ever doubted, that had ever fallen. I reclaimed the belt, and something more. I reclaimed myself. That knockout didn't just end a fight, it ended a chapter. After the fight, I pointed to my head. Mentality, I said, because that's the real weapon. Not my fists, not my kicks, my mind. That's what separates good from great. That's what keeps there. But the truth is, I was prepared to live. Fully, completely. No fear, no regret. Because that's the only way to be a champion. Not just stronger, sharper, reforged in fire. People now speak of me like a myth, like I'm more concept than man. But I'm real. I bleed. I doubt. I cry. And still, I rise. They ask what drives me. Ego, fame, number. It's the desire to leave a mark, not just on opponents, but on time itself. To be remembered, to inspire, to show that you can be strange, broken, outcast, and still become king. That you can bend styles, tell stories with your fists, and turn pain into poetry. My story isn't over. It's still being written. And trust me, the next page, it's going to shake the world. Every fight is public, every loss dissected. But the hardest battles, those are fought in silence. No cameras, no fans, just me, my thoughts, and a mirror that doesn't lie. After Pereira, after the redemption, I felt something new. Not just pride, but peace. I'd been climbing so long, I hadn't noticed how heavy the climb had become. I needed to breathe, to remember why I started. Not for belts, not for money, but for expression, for freedom. Fighting was always my language, my way of screaming into the void without saying a word. And in that silence, I heard myself again. People talk about legacy like it's some fixed destination, but it's not. Legacy is layered, fluid, a trail of moments, some ugly, some divine, that together form a story worth telling. Mine is still being written, but even now I see the footprints behind me. I see the kids who once felt too weird, too different, standing taller because I didn't shrink. I see the ones who love anime, who walk awkward, who dance when no music plays. They see me and they know they don't have to change. That's legacy. That's power. And I carry that with me into every fight. I'm often asked what keeps me going. Why keep risking it? Why keep putting your body through this? It's simple. I don't fight to win. I fight to express, to create, to leave art on the canvas of violence. Each jab, each feint, each perfectly timed knee, those are brushstrokes. And I'm not done painting. Not yet. Not while there are still doubters. Not while there's still evolution left in me. Fighting isn't about hurting others. It's about revealing truths. Mine, theirs, yours. Every fight tells a story, and I'm still chasing the perfect one. There's a clip I go back to sometimes. It's me as a kid, shadowboxing in my room. No audience, no lights, just movement. That kid didn't know who he would become, but he felt it. Felt the weight, felt the curiosity, that spark. And I fight for the man I'll be one day, sitting in a quiet house with scars and stories, looking back and knowing I gave it everything. I didn't hold back. I lived fully, fiercely, without compromise. You become one by choosing through loneliness. That's what no one tells you. Greatness is lonely. Everyone wants to be part of your rise, but few understand what it costs. The missed moments, the lost connections, the times you wonder if it's even worth it. But then you step into the cage, the world fades, and it all makes sense. I'm not special. I'm not a god. I'm just a man who decided to live fully, and that's what scares people. Not my talent, but my freedom. I'm unchained. And when a man is unchained, he becomes unstoppable. Sometimes I look back and wonder, what if I'd listened to the voices telling me to quit? What if I stayed in design school? What if I had believed that a skinny black kid with anime posters on his wall couldn't become the best fighter on earth? I wouldn't be here, wouldn't have inspired millions, wouldn't have silenced the arena with a perfectly timed knockout, wouldn't have proven again and again that self-belief is the most dangerous weapon a man can wield. I'm glad I didn't listen. Because the world needs rebels, needs artists, needs warriors. And make no mistake, I am all three. I rebel against the norm. I create with every movement, and I fight like I was born for it. That's why I'll never be just a champion. I'll be a blueprint, a reminder that you don't have to fit the mold to break the system, that being different isn't a weakness, it's a weapon. I've built my empire on authenticity, on style, on truth. And that empire, it's not made of gold. It's made of moments, of memories, of meaning, and it's still rising. So what's next? That's the question I get asked most. Another title defense? A new division? Maybe. But the real answer? Evolution. I'm not done. Not by a long shot. There are still fights to win, still stories to tell, still souls to awaken. I didn't come this far to plateau. I came to transcend. And whatever comes next, one thing's certain, it won't be predictable. Because I was never built to follow the script. I was born to write my own. And the pen's still in my hand. The ink's still wet. In the final chapter, that one's going to leave the world breathless. I once said I want to be immortal. That I want my name to echo beyond the cage, beyond time. But immortality isn't about being remembered. It's about why you're remembered. I don't want to be a name in a record book. I want to be a symbol of expression, of authenticity, of possibility. When a kid is told he's too awkward, too weird, too different, I want him to say, so was Izzy, and look what he became. That's legacy, not medals, not belts, but the ripples you send through. I'm a mosaic, a lifetime of contradictions, gentle and violent, loud and silent, a student of anime and a master of striking, a Nigerian boy who became a key. Every doubt, every tear, they echo in my mind like a chorus of ghosts, but I don't silence them. I listen, because those voices shaped me, gave me edge, made me sharper. Every "you can't" was fuel. Every "you're not enough" was fire. And now when I stand under the lights, I let those voices hear what I've become. I let them see the empire they tried to stop. And I smile, because I didn't just survive them. I turned them into my soundtrack. Fighting has given me everything, but it's also taken from me time, peace, innocence. There are nights I lie awake replaying battles, not just in the cage, but in life. Moments I wish I'd handled differently. Friends I lost along the way, but I've made peace with that. Greatness demands sacrifice, and I chose this life, fully, willingly, with eyes open. That's why I never complain, never wish it was easier, because I know what I'm doing isn't just for me. It comes when the crowd roars, and the world fades and all that's left is instinct. That's my church, my canvas, my truth. Some people meditate, some people paint. That's the calling. That's why I'll never fully walk away. Even when the world moves on, even when the next big name rises, I'll still be here. Maybe not in the octagon, but in the echoes, in the highlight reels. In the stance a young fighter takes, not knowing it was mine. In the confidence someone wears like armor because I wore it first. That's the afterlife I seek. Not gold, not glory, influence, inspiration, legacy woven into the DNA of the sport. Because when you fight with your soul, that energy doesn't fade. It lingers, it spreads, and it becomes immortal. And when I do finally hang up the gloves, I know what's next. Creation, animation, telling stories in new ways, giving the world characters who feel like I did, lost, searching, powerful in their uniqueness. I'll build that world, draw it, voice it, breathe life into it. Because long before I was the stylebender, I was a kid sketching heroes. That dream didn't die, it evolved. Fighting was just the beginning. My next battles will be waged with ink and imagination. And just like in the cage, I'll do it my way, with style, with soul, with purpose. So when the final chapter is written, I don't want it to say he was the greatest. I want it to say he changed something. The sport, the culture, the idea of what a fighter could be. I wasn't built to just win. I was built to redefine, to challenge norms, to color outside the lines. And I've done that, but I'm not done yet. There are still battles ahead, still people to inspire, still records to break and expectations to destroy. So no, this isn't a goodbye. It's a deep breath before another war. Because legacy isn't static, it's alive. And mine, it pulses, it evolves, it waits for the next challenge, for the next moment that will test everything I've built. And I welcome it, because I know who I am now. Not just the last stylebender, not just the king of middleweights. I'm Israel Adesanya, a warrior, a creator, a student, a teacher, a walking contradiction, a living story. And every time I speak, every time I fight, every time I dare to dream, I add another line to that story. And you? You're part of it now. So if you're still watching, still listening, still following this journey, know this: we're not done. The fire still burns. The legacy still, the story is far from over. Because every great myth needs a final twist. Every legend needs one more chapter. And when that moment comes, when the lights go out and the silence falls, you'll know it. Because you'll feel it, like a tremor in your chest, a whisper in your soul. The last stylebender has returned, and the world will never be the same.